All new stuff.
New stuff.
New stuff.
There was a guy who had a broken situation going on in his marriage. And he figured, you know what, things just aren't going right. And he kind of thought his wife was having an affair. So he decided he was going to leave work early and go back to his apartment. He was on the 21st floor of a nice high-rise, and catch her. So he left work early. Jumping ahead now. Three individuals are knocking on the gates of heaven. Now remember what I've just told you. They go up to the gates of heaven and they're trying to get in. And St. Peter says, I'm sorry, we're full right now. We're not letting anybody in, unless you died in a very strange way. And the three of them all looked at each other and went, oh. And St. Peter went up to the first one and said, why don't you start the story? And that's where he began to say, my wife was having an affair and I ran home and I wanted to catch her in the act. So I went up to my 21st floor apartment and I could hear her inside. And I burst through the door and there she was in the bedroom, alone. And I'm looking around the apartment, the closet, everywhere I could think of. There was nobody in there. I was so frustrated. I actually felt stupid. So I went outside on the patio just to get some air and reflect. And then I look down and I see a man dangling from my ledge, screaming and yelling in his underwear, saying, help me, help me. He's holding on with his fingers. I caught him. So I started pounding on his fingers. I wanted him to let go. I wanted him to fall, but he wouldn't let go. I ran inside and I got a hammer and I started smashing his fingers. He let go and he fell 21 stories down. But he landed in a bush. He's looking up at me and I'm looking down at him. And so I did the next thing I could think of. I ran into the kitchen and wheeled out my refrigerator onto the deck. I heaved it over and it landed on him and killed him. But St. Peter, in doing that, I had a heart attack. And I died, and I mean, would you let me in? And St. Peter said, God, I've never heard this one before. Come on in. He goes up to the next guy, who's standing there in his underwear. And he said, what happened to you? And he said, well, I was on my 22nd story balcony doing my exercises. And a long, big burst of a wind came and knocked me over. But thank God I caught the ledge of the 21st floor. But I couldn't get up. And I'm praying to God, St. Peter. I'm saying, please, somebody help me. Please. And just then, somebody comes through a door. And I'm saying to myself, I'm saved. And I'm dangling St. Peter with my fingers. And I figure he's going to reach down and pull me up. Instead, he starts hitting my fingers. And I'm screaming. And he won't stop. Then he leaves and he gets a hammer. And he's smacking me. I had to let go. But St. Peter, I landed in a bush. I was alive. But then I looked up, and a refrigerator, it landed on me and killed me. And that's how I died. And St. Peter said, my God, come on in. And he goes up to the third guy and said, what happened to you? And he said, picture this. I'm hiding in a refrigerator. What is the moral of that story? Things happen when you least expect them. And boy, do they happen on Coast to Coast. When we get those phone calls, you have no idea what's going to come. You know, people tell me, what are some of your most memorable calls? Honestly, they all are. Whether they come from people who are darn serious about what's going on in their life, whether it's the economy or a search for Bigfoot or this incredible UFO conference, all those are important. I remember though getting a call from a woman who just said, you know what, my husband came home late, 3 o'clock in the morning. He never comes home late, George, never. And I said, uh-huh. And she said, and he was all nervous and sweaty. And I said, uh-huh. What else can you say? She said, George, he said he was abducted by aliens. They got him. And I said, well, what else did he say? She said, they stole his wedding ring. You listen to those. Where do you go from there? Where do you go? But there was a class that I got many, many years ago from a fellow who was very despondent about life. And I guess it's the nature of the program because it covers everything. And he said, George, you know what? I was near suicide. I just wanted to give up on everything I did. And I didn't know what to do. So I got in my car and I just drove. And I drove and I drove about 100 miles. And on the side of the road, I see this little tiny lake with ducks flying in and flying out. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit there and reflect. Maybe even do the deed there. So he's sitting on a park bench, and a little old farmer comes by in coveralls and sits down next to him. And they chat. They chat for about an hour about everything, about life, his life, why it was so important. And the guy said, you know what, George, after we were done, I thanked him. He saved my life. I came back home a year later. I had a new job. I had a new girlfriend. Life was very good for me. And he said, I wanted to thank this guy. I didn't get his last name, but I know where he lived. So I went back. And I'm in this little town of 2,500 people, and I figure, look, there's one barber shop here. So the barber will know this guy once I describe him. So I walked in, and the barber's there cutting somebody's hair. And I said, excuse me, sir, but I'm trying to find this guy. And he started to explain what he looked like. And the barber knew him. And he said, hold on. Just, why don't you go up to the top of the hill? There's a big white house there. Knock on the door, talk to his daughter. And he said, okay, I will. But you know what, George? The way the barber was telling me this story, I kind of thought something was wrong. Something had happened. But I did. I knocked on the door. A young lady came, and I said, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm just here to thank your father because he saved my life. Last year, he sat down. She said, hold on. You're the 5th person to come and tell me this. But I just wanted you to know my father died 15 years ago. And when I heard that, it just sent chills up my spine. And it made me realize that there is so much to this world. So much, too, as well. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. at the X conference, sitting right next to astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who told me he's seriously thinking about going back into space, which I think would be incredible, and it would make him the oldest person in space ever, passing John Glenn. And he just began to tell us about his belief in extraterrestrial life and the fact that he has been told by people higher up that there is life, that we are being visited. And I've got to tell you, when you hear stories from people like that, even though all of us could be considered credible, when you hear stories from an astronaut that we've been visited, we have been visited, where they know this, you got to believe him. It's got no reason to make this up. And that just continues to add to my belief that there's so much out there in this universe that we just don't understand. I don't know where they're coming from. I think other planets in our universe. I think they've learned how to bend space and time and travel. But as more and more physicists like Michio Kaku talk about multi-universes, they may be coming from those as well. They simply seem to disappear at will. And so there may be something to that too. I'd like to open this up in a second to just some Q&A about what we do, things that you normally don't hear on the show. But I want to introduce a couple people in the audience that you may have heard of earlier today. Roger Lear, of course, is a dear friend. Roger, stand up, stand up. I wonder if they've heard the Roger Lear story. Have you heard probably, I think, one of the nicest stories of mankind I think I've ever heard? Have you ever heard the story about Roger Lear and his benevolence? Oh, you mind if I tell it? I know it sometimes embarrasses you.
I'm so anxious to hear the fourth version.
Okay. I mean, you are one heck of a guy to allow me to tell this story of your benevolence. Roger was being driven around by his, well, first of all, please understand, he removes implants from people. He doesn't make a lot of money doing this. He's a doctor, but you know, they're not running down, knocking down his door, paying him thousands of dollars for these operations. He donates his time. Nonetheless, Roger was in his limousine one day, driving down the side of the road. And to tell you the kind of guy he is, he saw a family on the side of a road. And these are tough economic times. And two little kids and a mother and father. And they were on their knees eating grass. Roger stops the limousine, rolls down his window, flicks his cigar a couple times, and yells out, "What are you people doing?" And the father said, "Sir, we're hungry, and this is all we can eat, this grass." Roger told his limousine driver, "Get them, get all of them, and put them in this car right now." And as the limousine driver is doing that, putting the father in the front, and the mother and the two kids in the back, and there's Roger, they drive off. And they said, "Sir, where are we going?" And Roger says, "Tonight, you will dine at my place." And they started crying. And then Raj said, "Because my grass is this high." I say this story only to get back at Roger for something he did to me at an event once. He booked a room for me because I was spending the night at this conference, only to come into this room and see two pillows on this king-size bed with names on the pillows. One had my name, the other had his. And I have pledged for the rest of my life to get him at every conference that he's at. That's Roger Lear. Another fella here who's been just a wonderful guest on Coast to Coast. Absolutely superb. Who somehow seems to get clipped on his telephone every time he's saying something that is not popular or very strange when it comes to government. Jordan Maxwell. Jordan. some guts. He tells it the way he sees it. I think you went through a spell of looking over your shoulder maybe too much, rightfully so. But, you know, something I think has happened to Jordan because he's not going to stop anymore. I think there was a point you were stopping, but you've come back, and we're glad you have. Lex, I want you to come up for just 1 second or so. Lex is our webmaster.
Yeah!
Lex had joined us when I took over full-time in 2003 and started modifying our website, and is now constructing the new one that is up, still going through its metamorphosis. And if you have any questions with the web, address them, and Lex will answer those for you too. Why don't you give us a few words about what you're doing with this thing?
Hey everybody. I was hoping that the website would still be up here so I could kind of do like the weather report. You know, it's cloudy over George Noory's face right now. It is a little bit of a work in progress, so we definitely are open to user feedback, and we have a bunch of new features that are still coming, so things aren't set in stone. But we're pretty happy with how it's going so far. We kind of gave it more of a streamlined, modern feel. There's 3 columns on the, oh, there we go. So we've got 3 columns instead of 4 on the home page, so it's a little less cluttered. And just have some user interactivity things that are, some of them are coming on the way where you can rate photos and shows. And things like, there's like a tab up there where you can click most popular so you can see what other people are clicking on, stuff like that. So it's just kind of a brief overview.
You know, people ask us why we keep doing what we're doing. Why do we keep forging ahead? Why do we break stories that the mainstream media doesn't pick up on for weeks, months, years later? Case in point, the swine flu. The first day this was reported, I went out on the air and said, folks, it's not that bad. Trust me here. For whatever reason, it's not that bad. And what are they saying today? Well, this is a strain that appears to be dying off. Or we're not sure how it happened, but it's almost gone. But we're still keeping our eyes on it now. What bothers me more than anything is how the mainstream media jumps on this hand-picked government verbiage. It doesn't tell you what's going on. They don't tell you the truth. They don't investigate it to the point where I am now convinced that it's the mainstream media that has helped contribute to this economic mess we're in by panicking people not to buy cars and not to do this and not to do that. And sure, it's bad for some people. But it got worse for most people because everybody panicked and stopped doing what they normally do. This economy in this country runs on people buying things. If you do not, it collapses. And the media in this country contributed to that demise. There is no doubt in my mind. And I think they are responsible for the panic that continues to run. What we're going to do on Coast to Coast is always be one step ahead of all of them. And if there are plans to put people in quarantine or put people in camps, we're going to be there and we're going to say it. And you can take it to the bank by the time we get to that point. In terms of the mainstream media, I'm very disappointed in what they do. And there is our ancient astronaut people as well. A great show. Great show. I still get more response to that, George, than anybody. Wonderful. Did you speak yet today?
Yes.
You did. Okay. So let's open this up to some Q&A. You all met Tom. our line show producer. There he is. We have a great staff at Coast to Coast with some remarkable people, George Knapp and Ian Punnett, who back us all up. Tom is what I call the line producer, and that is, he's there on the air when I'm there, handling people who call, and also is responsible for producing that first hour, and then works with our main show producer, Lisa, in filling guests that appear on the program on a regular basis. Works around the clock, constant energy. He is single, and if anybody wants to give him an application, there he is. How about some questions? Things that you normally don't hear on Coast to Coast. Who wants to start? Go ahead. This would make you east of the Rockies, I think.
When you look at all that's going on, do you ever think about like the camps and stuff? Do you ever think about leaving the country?
No, never. I can't, because if I do, number one, what kind of panic would that spread? You know, if I say, that's it, I'm out of here, what are you guys gonna do?
Coast to coast.
So, on that reason alone, I won't do that, because I truly feel as if I have an obligation, kind of like the Titanic. I'll make sure you all get in the boat first. Now, Tommy, on the other hand, may put on a woman's wig and a dress and jump on the boat first, but not me. Not me. But that's one of the main reasons. I do not plan to ever leave this country. I love the United States. I served in the military for 9 years, never saw combat. Though my unit was called up to the first Desert Storm, and I had retired 1 month before that, and they all came back with ribbons and everything else. Right on cue, thank you, God. Is follow-up to that?
Follow-up, have you ever had like a psychologist or someone on to help people with, because sometimes it gets really depressing, all the stuff that's going on.
Yes.
So do you ever have, because I listen to you mostly, but I may have missed it, do you ever have shows with people that help you, like, psychologically? What do you do about this? How do you...
We've had some self-help shows. We've also had our share of doom and gloomers who say it the way they see it. I mean, you listen to Steve Quayle, by the time you're done with 3 hours, you're ready to jump off a bridge. You really are. Yeah, you know, I take the approach that no matter how rough this is, we're going to get through all this, and we're going to get through this together. I got to tell you, you know, we do this Friday prayer thing, how remarkable it is with the emails that I'm getting from people who say that this is working for them in some incredible ways. I mean, tumors that are disappearing when doctors say, what the heck happened? Now, I can't claim credit for that through you in this show, but it is strange. It truly is. Next. Yes, sir.
Personal question, as far as Alex Jones goes.
Yes.
How much credibility personally do you give him? I'm on the cusp here.
I'm
starting to listen more.
I give him a lot of credibility. I think he is, I call him the bulldog, because once he gets to an issue, he doesn't let go. He truly believes that 9/11 was an inside job, where I believe that it was a job that some people turned their head from and decided they wanted things to happen and kind of let them go. I'm also a believer that there could be groups and organizations beyond government that could have been responsible for these things as well. That's where Alex and I differ. But most of his work is based on actual events that he then follow-ups on. If he says there are FEMA camps, it's because he read about it somewhere and he goes out to find out.
Does he have a big research staff, or?
He's got just a few people.
Okay, let's do the question.
Thank you.
Yes.
George, for your audience that's viewing you through the web, they have questions too, so we'll intersperse them in between. So there's one right here. Go ahead, Tom.
Do you believe that our government is a puppet of the New World Order?
Do I believe that our government is a puppet of the New World Order? I do not believe our government is a puppet of the New World Order, but I do believe that there are some people within government who would love to see a New World Order, and will do whatever they can for us to get there. I think elected officials, by and large, think that they're going to be doing a good, honorable job. Things change quickly when they get in office.
George, somebody wants to know if you think there's underground bases under Denver.
There may be. I don't know exactly where they are, but I think they do. And there are two reasons for this. One, I think it's smart government. That God forbid, in case anything ever happens to this planet, whether it's through massive solar flares or nuclear bombs, this government needs to continue, and they need to go somewhere. So I would be very disappointed if we didn't have underground facilities for reasons for that. Now, are they also building places to escape when those of us have to stay up here on top? Maybe.
Go to the audience.
Maybe. Any more audience calls?
Over here, George.
There we go. Yes, you. You sound like a phone call when you go, "Yeah, is this me?" And I go, "I don't know, is it?"
June of this year or at all, I guess.
Thing going through Congress that we're not supposed to grow fruits and vegetables on our property.
Has not happened yet, but they would like to control everything.
Well,
Everything. And I don't think that's going to pass, but again, it's the control factor.
because that Alex Jones was advertising, there's some place around the North Pole, they have all.
It's a seed bank.
Yeah.
That's true.
For a whole acre full of plants, boy, if you're gonna be sued, you know, or fined, why do it?
The seed bank is being put away because if we get hit by an asteroid or against some other calamity, what happens if everything dies off? We have to start again. So I think that's a pretty good idea. In terms of government controlling what we grow, I don't think they're ever going to be able to pull that off.
Because I've been listening to it, you know, on coast to coast, and haven't heard anything else about it.
No. If it gets real, we'll do it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
George, viewer number 300 wants to know, do you think Obama is going to finally release any UFO files?
As I told Steve Bassett at the UFO conference that he held, the X conference, no, I do not. I do not think presidents are aware of the UFO situation.
A follow-up to that, do you think that we as a people have a right to full disclosure?
Absolutely. We should be told everything. You know, governments make the big mistake. They think we can't handle the truth. We can. We're resilient. We're tough people. We can handle the truth, and we should be told everything. Even if they have craft that they built and they're not telling us. Yes?
You had Raylene on, and she alluded to the fact that one of the most awesome people that you're connected to on your website, Sherman Skolnick, was assassinated because he was going to come out with some information on Obama. On your show, you guys never got into what that information was. Is there a way we can get that?
I'm not sure he was assassinated. I interviewed him when I was doing my local show in St. Louis. Sherman was out of Chicago, did an incredible job putting some judges behind bars who did some things too. But I can't report on things until I think they're factual. And in terms of how he died, I have to think that it was natural. But we shall see. He was a good researcher. Yes, sir.
If somebody was interested in looking into these so-called conspiracies or anything else, where would be a good starting point for them to kind of launch this?
Alex Jones's websites are very good. Infowars.com, prisonplanet.com.
All that's pretty overwhelming. I'm saying as an actual subject matter, where do you think would be a good thing for the
You
layman?
know, it is so widespread now. It really is. There must be 60 websites devoted to different areas like this too. One good website, AboveTopSecret.com, they're good too. There are conferences. I believe I'm going to one in June, a conspiracy conference in Northern California. They're all over the place. Yes, ma'am.
George, the whole world knows that Africa is totally, completely infected with AIDS. How, in your opinion, that can be solved?
It can be solved if they wanted it to be solved. I am a believer that the AIDS virus started in the laboratory, was released intentionally or otherwise, And they probably can fight it and cure it if they wanted to. They may have the cure put away in some laboratory right now. There doesn't appear to be this urgency to take care of that problem.
George, someone in cyberspace wants to know if you think that aliens walk among us.
One look at you would answer
I knew
that.
that was coming. I so knew that was coming.
And a similar question, what about JFK? Did he know the truth about any alien things at all?
Not sure if he knew the truth about that, but he knew the truth about something. And he stepped on some toes, and they wanted him removed. It was not a lone gunman, in my opinion. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with Richard Gage and his 9/11 Truth, the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth?
The group I am, his name specifically, no.
Would you be in line with the idea of reconvening another investigation in 9/11?
Yes.
Sorting that
Yes.
issue out again?
With a group of people, I think it comes across better when you have 2 or 3 or 4 experts like that in a round table, because it shows the significance of how serious this problem is. The most recent is the thermite that was found in the dust all over that area. I mean, this just doesn't happen.
He's just joking.
But yes, to answer your question, probably as we get close to the anniversary date. We tend to do these stories like during the JFK assassination date and stuff. It's just more timely that way.
Recent evidence that
No,
We have somebody
You
from
know,
Boston take that in, Jordan.
Sure.
Hollow Earth theory?
Sure, and as you know, they believe exactly that it was done by the Al-Qaeda terrorists. But it's always good to balance
Well, they
it.
did all those tests.
Yeah, and they did that. I'd like to get their reaction to the new thermite discovery. That would be
I want some
interesting.
UFO stuff.
The last 7 email questions, I think that you didn't answer my original question, actually his original question.
Well, I was going to come back to that.
Okay, do you think aliens walk?
Yes, I do. I do. If you believe in extraterrestrial life, as I do, then you have to believe we've been visited. I mean, are they going to work with us on a regular basis? Probably not. But I think they're here, and I think they intermingle, and they come and go.
Here's one from the web. Do you believe that the moon is artificial?
No, I believe the moon is a natural object which probably came from Earth during a collision billions of years ago.
Audience, anybody?
Yes.
Sorry if this is too specific, but are you familiar with Peter Joseph, Zeitgeist movements?
Yes, we've had Peter on the program.
And the Venus Project, do you have any comments on?
I think Peter is a brilliant person. I think his 2 Zeitgeist movies are excellent. I believe in the economic one, which is his second one. His first about religion, I'm on the fence partially, but I think it is well worth looking at on both of them. I like him, and I like him as an individual. Yes?
When you had Ed Dames on, were you like, oh my God? Because everything he said was like, why don't I just shoot myself right now?
Yes, sometimes I do that. I get more email about Ed when he's on than just about anybody.
Oh.
People want him, they want to lynch him. They want him to be wrong, but then they want him to be right in some respect too.
Can I say something?
He's been right now on a couple lately.
Right. Now with remote viewing, the further you go into the future, the more possibilities there are. So for him to say this will absolutely happen is very irresponsible. As a remote viewer, he knows better than to say that. So I was wondering, can't you question him on those basic
Only when we get
premises?
close to those dates. Now here's an example. He said over a year and a half ago, we're going to have a major economic downturn followed by a major flu epidemic. Now, did it happen that way? No, but we did have a major downturn, and we did have a so-called flu epidemic, they said. I'm watching the 2 most recent predictions he has made through remote viewing. That is, Israel attacks Iran within 5 or 6 months, and also we get a huge earthquake within 5 or 6 months. His kill shot
Another good one here.
is 5 or 6 years ago, so now he's a little more specific about
Whether
that.
he thinks will have an impact on the release of
Yes,
UFO
sir.
files.
George, this is a fossil that I wanted to show you. And because you brought up Ed Dames and because you asked the question about the psychology of all this subject. This is 18 million years old, dug up Santa Ana River Valley, 80 miles north of here.
Tell me there's a huge pearl in there.
I've actually broken one open and there's no pearls. But the point is that all shells that are normally found are half shells because when an animal dies, the muscle opens. Okay, this is whole. This is a kill shot shell. I found a whole bed of these large animals below, thousands of years of broken shells, all intact.
Something happened fast, killed
Something
them.
happened fast and killed them. I have one for you because Art Bell started it. The psychology of listening to Ed Dames, listening to all of the universe, the tapestry of the problems that might be coming upon us. This reminds me that yes, at some point in Earth's history, there are catastrophic events. And so when I listen to Ed Dames, you know, which I have numerous times, and yes, it really psychologically makes you wonder, what do I do? What do I do? The reason why I love your show and why I'd like to give you one of these is that I have these, I dug them up and I'm going, my gosh, this stuff might be real. What Ed Dames is saying might be real because I'm holding an animal that died in a similar situation, whether it's the sun, whether it's the earth, whether it's the aliens, or, you know, who knows.
Can we pass that around? Oh.
Yeah.
What a catch! For anybody who wants to touch the thing.
Wait, but here.
By the way, that's how swine flu
Is there a
starts.
question? Do you have a question?
By the way, let me finish real quick. Psychologically, your show is so valuable because I'm a parent. I've got grandmas and I've got, hopefully grandkids. All these issues psychologically disturb me when it hits the forefront.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have to digest it, climb the mountain a little farther, and then I listen to another show, and then I go through the same thing, and then I digest it, and I climb up that mountain a little farther. So what you're doing is you're enlightening the world to what I know, not believe, I know we're coming up to some very, very hard times. And you're going to allow your audience to handle these problems much better.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you an interesting story. I was talking with someone who was not a regular coast-to-coast listener back in St. Louis. They are not. And when we started talking about all these subjects that you all know, that you're all aware of, they couldn't believe it. Yet the coast-to-coast audience is so educated when it comes to these items and stories. Truly remarkable. I mean, I would give you all PhDs in life compared to people who live during the daytime, for example.
George, cyberspace would like you to talk a few minutes about out-of-body experiences.
Well, I had my very first when I was 11, and it was also my only OBE. I woke up one day, I was staying home from school, and I was bouncing along the top of a ceiling. And I looked down at my little 11-year-old body and just rammed myself right back into it. I've never been able to do it since. However, I've done a lot of research into OBEs. There's no question that the astral plane exists. And I believe your outer body is your soul. It's your spirit. It leaves the body when you sleep, hovers over it, ever so gently. And that's how your physical body and your soul get energy by that separation, connected by a cord. The cord is severed during death, and off you go. But I mean, and the astral plane consists of different layers as well.
And along with that question, what about ghosts and ghost stories?
I believe in all of them. I believe in life after death. I don't know exactly what it is and what plane of existence they may be on, but they are truly real. And I do that based on faith and belief, and all the people who call this program are telling us incredible stories of things. And even if 1% was real, that's 1% that you have to look at. Yes, sir.
In your line of work, do you believe you ever came across the extraterrestrial statues or anything?
You know, we've gotten some strange calls sometimes from people, and you always wonder just who the heck is on the other line. And some have claimed to be ETs, but in terms of direct, no. I've seen some people who are strange. Big heads, huge eyes. I dated a few. That was it for them, and me.
What's your opinion on crop circles?
A very strange phenomenon. A message from someone about something. Linda Moulton Howe believes it's all gearing up to 2012. And again, there's another situation. If 99% of the crop formations are man-made, that tells you that 1% out there are not man-made. Where are they coming from? Who's doing it? What's the message they're trying to convey? So I believe in crop formations. I don't know what the message is. Hello, Jason. Yes, ma'am. Normally, we only take a call every 30 days, but in your case, we'll let you go.
I don't want to ask
Yes, absolutely. As long as a solar flare doesn't wipe out all the radio stations. Yep, absolutely.
One more web question. Do you fear the military-industrial complex and feel that they are either have absolute power or trying to get there?
I think they already have it. The big push is whether we as people can take it away. They are using it, manipulating it, creating battles and wars every time they want. And they're doing it, and they will do it. You know, that's one of the reasons why they want to take your guns away. I'm a supporter in your right to bear arms. So nobody can come into your house and tell you what to do at any given time. You've got to be able to defend yourself. Sure, believe me, every time some wacko goes ballistic and kills 10 or 15 people in a supermarket or a mall or something, I feel about that. But gun control is not going to stop that. Those people will find their weapons to do what they want to do. What you have to do is have your own protection, and that's the important thing.
George, you want to take a couple more and then sign some things? For
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay, so let's do a couple more questions. Anybody in the audience?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a comment. You know, you have so many viewers, and they're so knowledgeable, and yet when we want to like fight back against anything, it's kind of hard because there's not enough people locally in one area to fight back. But any way to band together, like your listeners? I mean, you have listeners that are non-Christians, that are born again, that are Christians. I mean, it's the only place where groups like this get along because of all the other common knowledge that they share. But is there any way to band everyone together to fight back?
Yeah, every once in a while we've been contemplating doing specific campaigns, whether it's consciousness or a political attack in Washington about a certain issue, and maybe we should kick that up a little quicker.
Yeah, is there any confirmation to the fact that, or not the fact, but from what you hear, that munitions are being purchased mostly by government agencies and things like that and taking out of the private parties?
Ammunition is being bought in this country at such a rate, they can't make it fast enough. One of the problems is I think government is buying more ammunition for military purposes, and the manufacturers are getting the check. And so they've been told, we come first. And by the time they get down to the mainstream, there's not enough ammunition left to go around. I own some handguns and I'm licensed to carry concealed. I'm not carrying here, because I'm not licensed here, but I am in Missouri. I waited 4 hours at a Walmart to buy ammunition 2 months ago. I was the third guy in line. There ended up being 13 people. One pallet came in to the store. It was gone after that. It was gone. And I don't see it getting any better.
George, we'll wrap up questions. Somebody from cyberspace would like your thoughts on
Reincarnation.
Well, I believe in reincarnation. I think we've come back. Unlike most people who believe in reincarnation, I don't think we come back 100 times. They do. I think we come back to reach perfection. So maybe it takes 3 or 4 times, and each time you come back, you get a little better until you reach that stage of perfection, which some would call heaven.
If you could possibly get Roger to give up his seat, that's where you'll sit down and meet some people.
That's going to take a lot.
I know.
How about one more from the audience? One more question? Yes, sir.
How credible do you find Billy Meyer's story?
Great story. How credible? I'm not sure. The one thing in his defense, they didn't have Photoshop during his day, and he was either a great animation expert or what he did was real. I think he's come across some incredible things. I really do. If it were to happen today, you could question it because Photoshop is so good right now.
George, you got a 20? What's a 20?
That's what I bring you here for. Grease the skids and give me over. By the way, thank you for all of you for your continuing support for conferences like this and Coast to Coast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.